Businessman sees boy in wheelchair protecting his daughter at school. And then his life changes. Richard Thompson was late for another important meeting when he decided to pick up his daughter early from school. His secretary had informed him of a cancelled appointment, and he thought he'd take the opportunity to spend a few minutes with Emily before heading back to the office. It was when he stopped the car in front of St. Patrick's School and saw something through the classroom window that made his heart race. A boy in a wheelchair had positioned himself between his 8-year-old daughter and 3 older girls who were surrounding her in the hallway. Emily was crying, but she was clinging to the boy's arm as if he were her only protection. "Leave her alone, Madison," said the boy, moving his chair to completely block the girl's path. "Get out of the way, cripple. This has nothing to do with you," replied one of the girls, trying to push the wheelchair. The boy held firmly onto the wheels and didn't budge. "As long as I'm here, no one is going to hurt Em." Richard watched everything through the window, frozen. Part of him wanted to run to defend his daughter, but something about the determination of that boy made him hesitate. The boy showed no fear, even though he was smaller and at an obvious disadvantage. "You're cowards," the boy continued. 3 against 1 little girl. What kind of courage is that?" The leader of the group, a girl of about 10, got annoyed by the comment. "Shut up, Nathan. You shouldn't even be in this school. Disabled people should study in special schools." "My mom pays the same tuition as you," Nathan replied calmly, "and I have as much right to be here as anyone." Richard felt a strange mix of admiration and discomfort. That boy showed impressive maturity, but at the same time, his presence there seemed to complicate Emily's situation. Did his daughter really need to depend on someone with physical limitations to defend herself? The 3 girls gave up the confrontation when they saw the teacher approaching down the hall. They left, muttering low threats that only Nathan and Emily could hear. "Thank you, Nathan," said Emily, still wiping away her tears. "They were going to tear up my homework again." "No need to thank me," the boy replied, smiling. "We're friends, right? Friends protect each other." Richard decided to go into the school. He walked through the halls until he found the 2 still talking near the classroom. "Dad!" exclaimed Emily, running to hug him. "You're early today." "That's right, sweetie. I had a meeting cancelled and decided to pick you up early." Richard looked at Nathan, who was watching him with curiosity. The boy had brown hair, intelligent eyes, and a genuine smile. He was wearing the school uniform shirt and worn-out sneakers. His wheelchair was simple, clearly used, but well-maintained. "Dad, this is Nathan. He's my best friend at school," said Emily proudly. "Hello, Mr. Thompson," said Nathan politely. "Em always talks about you." "Hello, Nathan," replied Richard, forcing a smile. "Thank you for looking after Emily." There was something in Richard's tone that Nathan picked up on immediately, a polite distance, as if he were thanking him out of obligation. The boy was already used to that kind of reaction from adults. "See you tomorrow, Em," said Nathan, starting to move away. "Wait," called Emily. "Dad, Nathan always helps me with math. He's super smart, and when I forget my snack, he shares his with me." Richard nodded vaguely, already taking his daughter's hand. "That's nice, honey. Now let's go. I still have work today." On the way home, Emily wouldn't stop talking about Nathan. She told him how he had arrived at school mid-semester after his family moved from Pittsburgh to New York City. He explained that his mother worked cleaning the school overnight to get a discount on the tuition. "He was born that way, Dad, but he never complains about anything, and he's the bravest kid in the class. He always stands up for whoever is being picked on." "Emily, you can't depend on others to solve your problems," said Richard, looking in the rearview mirror. "You need to learn to stand up for yourself." "But Nathan doesn't do it out of obligation, Dad. He does it because we're real friends." Richard sighed. His daughter was too naive to understand life's complexities. How could he explain that dependence breeds more dependence, that she needed to learn to be strong and independent? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like the video and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us creators who are just starting out. Now, continuing. That night, Richard talked with his wife Jennifer about what he had witnessed at school. "You should be proud of our daughter," said Jennifer, preparing dinner. "She found a true friend." "Jennifer, that boy is in a wheelchair. How can he protect anyone?" From what you told me, that's exactly what he did today. But what if the girls decided to get physical? What would he do? Jennifer stopped stirring the pot and looked at her husband. Richard, you're being prejudiced. That boy showed a courage that many adults don't have. It's not prejudice, it's reality. Our daughter needs to learn to face difficulties on her own, not hide behind someone who can barely defend himself. You're being unfair and cruel. The argument continued through dinner, with Emily sensing the tension between her parents. She didn't understand why her father seemed to dislike Nathan, who was the kindest person she knew. The next day, Richard made a decision that would change everything. He called 3 private schools in the area and scheduled visits for the same week. Emily would be transferred to an environment where she could develop independence and personal strength. When he told his daughter about the decision, her reaction was devastating. "Dad, I don't want to leave that school. My friends are there." "You'll make new friends, Emily. Friends who will teach you to be stronger." "Nathan doesn't teach me to be weak. He teaches me to be brave." "Emily, the decision is final. You start at Westridge Academy on Monday." The girl cried for hours. Jennifer tried to convince her husband to reconsider, but Richard was determined. In his mind, he was doing what was best for his daughter, protecting her from becoming dependent on people who couldn't truly help her when she needed it. The transfer happened the following Monday. Emily said goodbye to Nathan with tears in her eyes, promising she would come back to visit him. The boy tried not to show how sad he was, but Jennifer, who went to the school to pick up her daughter's things, saw the sadness in his eyes. "Nathan, you will always be welcome in our home," said Jennifer, against her husband's wishes. "Thank you, Miss Jennifer. I'm going to miss Em." Westridge Academy seemed perfect on paper. Modern facilities, qualified teachers, students from established families. Richard felt satisfied with his choice when he toured the campus and spoke with the principal. "Our school builds leaders, Mr. Thompson," said the principal, Dr. Catherine Jennings. "Here, your daughter will learn to face challenges and develop resilience." In the first few days, Emily seemed to be adjusting. She said little about the new school, but Richard interpreted this as a sign that she was maturing and focusing on her studies. The reality was quite different. Madison, Brianna, and Jessica, the same girls who had tormented Emily at her previous school, also attended Westridge Academy. Their families had been transferred due to their father's companies, and they had arrived just 2 weeks before Emily. Without Nathan around, the attacks intensified dramatically. On the second day, they threw Emily's snack in the trash. On the third, they hid her backpack. On the fourth, they tore up her math notebook. Emily tried to defend herself alone, as her father had said, but she was at a clear disadvantage. The 3 girls were older, taller, and acted as a group. Every time Emily tried to approach other classmates, they pushed her away with mean comments. "No one wants to be friends with a crybaby," Madison would say during breaks. The situation worsened when they discovered that Emily had been friends with Nathan. "Oh, now I get it," Brianna said during recess. "You can only be friends with a cripple because you're just as weird as him." "Nathan is not a cripple. He's braver than all 3 of you combined," Emily replied, finally losing her patience. That's when the attacks turned physical. Jessica pushed Emily against the bathroom wall while Madison held her arms. Brianna pinched her arm hard, leaving purple marks. "Next time you talk about your defective little friend, it will be worse," Madison threatened. Emily came home that day with her uniform torn and marks on her arm. Richard was alarmed to see his daughter's condition. "What happened, Emily?" "I fell in the schoolyard, Dad. I tripped while running." Richard knew something was wrong, but Emily refused to tell the truth. She was afraid that if she told him about the bullying, her father would blame her for not being able to defend herself. The situation continued for 2 weeks. Emily was losing weight, having nightmares, and refusing to talk about school. Jennifer insisted something was wrong, but Richard believed it was just the adjustment process. Everything changed on a Friday when Richard received a call from the school during an important meeting. "Mr. Thompson, you need to come pick up your daughter. She had an incident in the bathroom." Richard rushed to the school and found Emily in the principal's office, with her blouse torn and crying uncontrollably. There were scratches on her neck, and her hands were trembling. "What happened?" asked Richard, alarmed. "Your daughter got into a fight with some classmates," the principal explained, in a disinterested tone. "These are normal things among children. They need to learn to resolve these issues themselves." "A fight?" Richard looked at Emily. "Sweetie, tell me what happened." Emily finally told him everything. Through sobs, she explained the constant attacks, the humiliations, the intentional injuries. She told him how the girls forced her to be alone during recess and how they tore up her schoolwork. "Why didn't you tell me before?" asked Richard, feeling a tightness in his chest. "Because you said I had to learn to defend myself alone. I thought if I told you, you'd be mad at me for not being able to." Richard felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. His daughter had suffered in silence because he had made her believe that asking for help was a sign of weakness. "And where were the teachers?" Richard asked the principal. "Mr. Thompson, we can't monitor every move the children make. Your daughter needs to learn to integrate better with the group." "Integrate? She's being assaulted." "These are normal kid games. If we overprotect them, they never learn to face real life." Richard left the school with Emily in his arms, feeling like the worst father in the world. On the way home, his daughter fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from crying so much. That night, after Emily went to sleep, Richard talked to Jennifer about everything that had happened. "I was wrong," he admitted, his voice breaking. "Completely wrong. Richard, what matters now is fixing this." "How? How do I fix what I did to our daughter?" Jennifer took her husband's hand. "By recognizing your mistakes and changing, and maybe starting by understanding that boy, Nathan, wasn't the problem. He was the solution." On Saturday morning, Richard found Emily writing something in her room. When he approached, he saw it was a letter. "Dear Nathan, I miss you so much. Daddy moved me to a new school, but there are mean girls here too. You always protected me, and I didn't realize how important it was to have a true friend. I wish you were here with me. You are the bravest person I know. I hope to see you soon. Your friend forever, Emily." Richard felt his eyes fill with tears. His 8-year-old daughter had learned a lesson about friendship and loyalty that he, at 42, was only just beginning to understand. "Emily, would you like to deliver this letter to Nathan in person?" The girl looked at her father in surprise. "Can I, Dad?" "Of course you can. How about we go visit him today?" The smile that lit up Emily's face was the first genuine display of joy Richard had seen from his daughter in weeks. They arrived at St. Patrick's School around 10 in the morning. It was Saturday, but there were some extra activities going on. Richard asked for Nathan at the office and found out he was participating in a reading project for younger children. They found the boy in a small room, surrounded by 5, 6, and 7-year-olds who were listening attentively while he read The Little Prince. His voice was expressive, using different tones for each character. The children laughed and asked questions, completely engrossed in the story. Emily couldn't contain herself and ran to hug her friend. Nathan almost fell off his chair in surprise, but returned the hug with a huge smile. "Em, what a wonderful surprise. I missed you so much." "Me too, Nathan. I think about you every day." Richard watched the scene from a distance, moved. The genuine happiness of the two was impossible to ignore. This wasn't a friendship based on dependency, as he had thought. It was a real connection between two children who cared for each other. "Mr. Thompson," said Nathan, noticing the presence of Emily's father, "it's good to see you again." "Hello, Nathan. I've come to apologize." The boy seemed confused. "Apologize for what, sir?" "For not recognizing how important you are to my daughter, and for taking her away from here without understanding the whole situation." Nathan was silent for a few seconds, processing the words. "You don't need to apologize, sir. You were protecting Em the way you thought was best." The maturity of that 12-year-old boy left Richard even more impressed. "Nathan, can I ask you something? How are you so brave? Aren't you afraid of the older girls?" Nathan smiled. "Of course I'm afraid, Mr. Thompson, but my mother always told me that courage isn't about not being afraid. Courage is doing what's right, even when you are scared." Richard nodded, feeling a lump in his throat. And protecting Em is always the right thing, Nathan continued. She's my best friend. True friends protect each other, right? You're right, Nathan. You are absolutely right. At that moment, Richard understood he had judged that boy by his physical limitations without seeing his extraordinary qualities. Nathan possessed strength of character, emotional intelligence, and moral courage that many adults lacked. Dad, Emily said timidly, do you think I could come back here to study with Nathan again? Richard looked at his daughter, then at Nathan, who waited anxiously for the answer. Of course you can, my dear. If this is where you are happy, this is where you should be. The two friends hugged again, and Richard was certain he had made the right decision. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like the video and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out, as we're just getting started. Now, back to the story. Over the weekend, Richard arranged the transfer back to St. Patrick's. On Monday, Emily woke up excited for the first time in weeks. Richard took her to school personally and took the opportunity to speak with the principal, Principal Sarah Williams. Mr. Thompson, we are very happy to have Emily back. She and Nathan make a very special pair. Principal Williams, I'd like to know more about Nathan. Emily is always talking about him, but I admit I didn't understand the importance of this friendship at first. The principal smiled and invited Richard to sit in her office. Nathan arrived here in the middle of last semester when his mother, Ms. Patricia, got a job on the school's night cleaning crew. Part of her salary is converted into a tuition discount because she insisted that her son study at a regular school, not a special institution. And how did he adjust? It was difficult at first. Some children made nasty comments, especially the older ones, but Nathan never responded with aggression. He simply showed, through his actions, that he was equal to any other student. Richard listened attentively. What impresses me most about him is how he's turned his experience of suffering into empathy. Having been through situations of exclusion himself, he can't stand to see other children being mistreated. It's as if he decided to be the protector he wished he'd had. And academically, how is he doing? He's the best student in his class. He has a brilliant mind and a remarkable thirst for knowledge. He always helps classmates who are struggling, never in a superior way, but with patience and kindness. His mother. What is she like? Miss Patricia is a warrior of a woman. She works here from 10 at night until 5 in the morning, then goes to another job from 7 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon, all to give Nathan the best opportunities possible. Richard left the conversation with the principal with a completely new perspective on Nathan and his family. That boy wasn't someone dependent or limited, as he had initially thought. He was an extraordinary person who turned limitations into triumph and pain into compassion. Over the following days, Richard discreetly observed the friendship between Emily and Nathan. He saw how they studied together in the library, how Nathan helped Emily with math, and how she helped him by pushing his chair when his arms got tired. He also noticed how other students gravitated towards them. Nathan had become a sort of natural leader, someone the children sought out when they had problems or felt sad. On a Thursday, Richard decided to arrive at school early to observe more closely. He found Nathan in the courtyard, comforting a 7-year-old boy who was crying. "What happened, Timmy?" Nathan asked patiently. "The 8th grade boys took my snack and threw it in the trash," the boy sobbed. "Did you tell the teacher?" "I did, but she said it was just kid stuff and that I had to learn to stand up for myself." Nathan thought for a few seconds. "Listen, Timmy, I'll share my snack with you today, okay? And tomorrow, how about you stay near me and Em during recess? Let's see if anyone bothers you then." The boy stopped crying and nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Nathan. You're really cool." "Don't mention it, we're all friends here, right?" Richard watched the scene hidden behind a column, his chest tight with emotion. That 12-year-old boy was teaching lessons in humanity that many adults had forgotten. That night, Richard talked to Jennifer about everything he had observed. "I was so wrong, Jennifer, so blinded by prejudice that I couldn't see what was right in front of me. The important thing is that you see it now, Richard, and that our daughter has an extraordinary friend. I want to do something for them, for Nathan and his mother." "Like what?" "I don't know yet, but I need to repay in some way all the kindness that this boy has shown our daughter. The next day, Richard decided to meet Miss Patricia. He arrived at the school around 10:30 at night when her shift was beginning. He found a woman of about 35, thin, with her hair tied up and an impeccable cleaning uniform. "Miss Patricia, I'm Richard Thompson, Emily's father." The woman stopped organizing the cleaning supplies and greeted him with a tired but genuine smile. "Ah, Mr. Richard. Emily is a beautiful girl. My Nathan won't stop talking about her. Actually, I came here to thank you for everything your son has done for my daughter, and to apologize for not recognizing it sooner." Miss Patricia seemed confused. "Apologize for what?" Richard told her the whole story, from the first day he saw Nathan protecting Emily to the hasty decision to change his daughter's school. He explained about the bullying Emily suffered at Westridge Academy and how he had realized his mistake. "Your son is an extraordinary person, Miss Patricia. He has a strength of character that deeply impresses me." Patricia smiled with pride, but also with sadness. "Nathan has always been like that, since he was little. When we found out about his condition, I thought life would be very hard. But he taught me that we can choose how to react to difficulties." "What condition?" asked Richard delicately. Patricia hesitated before answering. "Nathan was born with a degenerative condition in his leg muscles. That's why the wheelchair. But recently we discovered that the condition could spread to his arms and other parts of his body." Richard felt the world spin. "And is there a treatment?" "There is an experimental treatment that could slow the progression, but it's very expensive indeed." "How much?" "Mr. Richard, you don't need to worry about that. We've always managed on our own and we'll continue to manage." "Ms. Patricia, please, how much does the treatment cost?" She sighed. 15,000 rays per month for at least 2 years. It's impossible for me." Richard did the math quickly. 360,000 rays. It was a lot of money, but not impossible for someone in his financial position. What if someone could help? "Mr. Richard, you are very kind, but I can't accept charity. I have my pride." "It wouldn't be charity, Miss Patricia, it would be gratitude. Your son saved my daughter from a terrible situation. How can I let anything happen to him?" Patricia shook her head. "Thank you, but I can't accept. Nathan would be hurt if he knew we were being treated as a charity case." Richard insisted for a few more minutes, but realized that Miss Patricia was firm in her position. He left the school that night, determined to find a way to help that preserved the family's dignity. Over the weekend, Richard couldn't stop thinking of a solution. It was Jennifer who suggested the idea that would change everything. "Why don't you offer her a job at your company? A real position with a fair salary? That way it wouldn't be charity, it would be an opportunity." Richard stopped pacing the room. "Jennifer, you're a genius. She could work in administration or in the human resources department. She's certainly a responsible and dedicated person. I'll talk to her on Monday." Richard could barely sleep over the weekend, anxious to present his proposal. On Monday, he arrived early at the school and waited for Miss Patricia to finish her shift. "Miss Patricia, I have a job proposal for you." "A job proposal?" "My company needs someone for the administrative sector, business hours, Monday to Friday, with a salary of 4,000 rees per month." Patricia looked at him suspiciously. "Mr. Thompson, you're doing this because of Nathan, aren't you?" "I'm doing it because I need someone competent and reliable, and based on how you raised your son, I'm certain you're exactly the type of person I'm looking for." "But I don't have any office experience." "You have experience in responsibility, dedication, and honesty. We can teach the rest." Patricia fell silent for several minutes, clearly conflicted. "And what if I can't do a good job?" "I'm sure you will. But if it doesn't work out for any reason, you can come back here, no problem. 4,000 reais a month. 4,000 reais a month, plus meal vouchers, health insurance, and all the same benefits the other employees get." Ms. Patricia began to cry. "Mr. Thompson, this would completely change our lives. So, do you accept?" "I do, but on one condition." "What is it?" "If you ever need to let someone from the company go, let it be me first. I don't want other employees to be hurt because of a favor you're doing me. Richard smiled. Ms. Patricia, I'm sure that within a few months, you will be one of the most valuable employees in the company. The change was radical. With the new salary, Ms. Patricia was able to get the experimental treatment for Nathan and even move to a better apartment, closer to the school. Nathan was thrilled with the improvement in his family's quality of life, but he didn't know about Richard's involvement in the change. My mum got an amazing job, Nathan told his friend during recess. Now I'll be able to get the treatment to get stronger. That's so cool, Nathan. I'm really happy for you. And you know what's even cooler? My mum said she'll be able to buy a new wheelchair for me, one that's lighter and faster. Emily ran to tell her father the news when he came to pick her up. Dad, did you hear? Nathan's mum got a really good job. Now he can get his treatment. Richard pretended to be surprised. What wonderful news, sweetie. I'm so happy for them. Dad, do you think it's a coincidence? Right when we became friends again? Richard smiled. Sometimes life gives us gifts when we least expect them, Emily. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like the video and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out as we're just getting started. Now, continuing the story. 3 months later, Ms. Patricia had become one of the most beloved employees in Richard's company. Her dedication and honesty impressed all her colleagues. She had quickly learned the administrative routines and often suggested improvements to the processes. Richard, that employee you hired is exceptional, commented Helena, the HR manager. I've never seen anyone adapt so quickly and so efficiently. I told you she was special, Richard replied with satisfaction. Nathan, in turn, had started the experimental treatment and was already showing signs of improvement. The doctors were optimistic about his body's response to the medication. The strength in his arms had increased, and he could stand for a few minutes with support. The friendship between Nathan and Emily continued to grow stronger. They were inseparable at school, studied together every afternoon, and had created a group for younger children that they protected and helped. Dad, Nathan had an amazing idea, Emily said one day. He wants to start an anti-bullying club at school to teach kids how to protect themselves and others. What a fantastic idea, and how would this club work? We're going to teach the kids that courage isn't about being the strongest, but about protecting those in need. And that differences aren't flaws, they're just characteristics that make each person special. Richard was moved by his daughter's maturity and the positive influence Nathan had on her worldview. The idea for the anti-bullying club was presented to the school principal, who approved it immediately. Nathan and Emily began organizing weekly meetings where they talked with children who were being bullied and taught non-violent defense strategies. The secret is to never face it alone, Nathan explained to a group of 5 younger children. Always look for a trusted adult or call your friends. Together, we are stronger. And if someone calls you ugly names, remember that words only hurt if we let them, Emily added. You are special just the way you are. The club grew quickly. Within 2 months, 20 children were regularly attending the meetings. Bullying incidents at the school decreased drastically, and the environment became more welcoming for everyone. Richard watched everything with growing admiration for Nathan. That boy had turned his limitations into superpowers of empathy and leadership. He was not only recovering physically with his treatment, but was also transforming the lives of dozens of other children. One afternoon, Richard was surprised by a call from the school. Mr. Thompson, you need to come here quickly. Something happened to Nathan, said the secretary in a worried voice. Richard dropped everything and ran to the school, his heart racing. He found Nathan on the ground in the courtyard, conscious but clearly in pain. Emily was beside him, holding his hand and crying. What happened? Asked Richard, kneeling beside the boy. I was pushing his chair down the stairs because the elevator was broken, Emily explained between sobs. Then it slipped from my hand and Nathan fell. Nathan tried to smile even through the pain. It wasn't Em's fault, Mr. Richard. The chair is old and the brake didn't work right. Don't talk, Nathan. We're taking you to the hospital. Richard carried Nathan to his car while Emily held the wheelchair. On the way to the hospital, Nathan kept trying to reassure everyone. It's nothing serious. I just hit my arm. I'll be fine in no time. At the hospital, the doctors examined Nathan and found he had fractured his right wrist. Nothing serious, but it would require a cast for 6 weeks. 6 weeks? Nathan seemed disappointed. But how will I write? What about the anti-bullying club? Nathan, you're going to be fine. The important thing is that it wasn't serious, said Richard, relieved. Miss Patricia arrived at the hospital frantic after receiving Richard's call. When she saw her son was okay, she broke down in tears of relief. My God, Nathan, you gave me a terrible scare. Sorry, Mom, but look, Mr. Richard came to help me, and Em stayed with me the whole time. Patricia looked at Richard with gratitude. Thank you for taking care of him. Thank you for everything you have done for us. Ms. Patricia, Nathan is part of our family now. You can always count on us. During the 6 weeks of recovery, something interesting happened. Emily took on the role of Nathan's arms, helping him with all tasks that required 2 hands. She wrote what he dictated, carried his books, and even helped him during snack time. Now I understand how you feel always helping others, Emily said one afternoon while writing a history paper that Nathan was dictating. It feels good to take care of someone you love. It does, Em, and thank you for taking care of me. You're the best friend in the world. The experience strengthened their friendship even more and taught Emily valuable lessons about empathy and reciprocity. Richard watched everything with a heart full of pride for his daughter. When Nathan finally got the cast removed, the first thing he did was hug Emily. Thank you for being my arms when I needed them, he said, emotional. Always, Nathan. I'll always be here for you. Richard, who was watching the scene from afar, felt his eyes fill with tears. Those 2 friends had learned the true meaning of friendship, mutual support, and loyalty. With Nathan recovered, the anti-bullying club returned to its normal activities. The meetings now happened twice a week and included hands-on activities, like role-playing and discussions about empathy. Today we're going to talk about differences, Nathan said one Thursday morning to the group of children. Who can tell me one thing that makes you unique? I wear glasses, said a shy 7-year-old girl. I'm black and some kids make jokes about it, shared a boy. I stutter when I get nervous, admitted another. Nathan nodded to each one. Do you know what all these things have in common? They make you special, unique. And anyone who makes fun of those traits is showing they don't understand what really matters. What really matters, Nathan? Asked the girl with glasses. What matters is how you treat others. If you are kind, brave, honest, if you help those in need, if you are a good friend, those are the things that make a person valuable. Richard had started discreetly attending the meetings, always impressed by Nathan's wisdom. That 12-year-old boy had an understanding of life and values that many adults never develop. Nathan's influence extended beyond the school. At home, Emily had become more empathetic and proactive in helping others. She began questioning unfair situations she witnessed and always looked for ways to help people in need. Dad, why were some people born with more money and others with less? Emily asked one night during dinner. That's a good question, honey. Life isn't always fair. Some people have more opportunities than others, but we can help make it more fair, right? Like you did with Miss Patricia. Richard almost choked on his food. How do you know about that? I figured it out, Dad. It wasn't hard. Nathan's mom got an amazing job right after you got to know them better. And at your company. Richard looked at Jennifer, who smiled knowingly. You're not mad at me for figuring it out, are you, Dad? Of course not, honey. I just didn't want Nathan to know. I didn't want him to feel indebted to us. I think you should tell him. Nathan values honesty above all else, and he would be happy to know he has friends who truly care. Richard thought about his daughter's words for days. Maybe she was right. Maybe the secret was creating an unnecessary barrier between them. A week later, Richard decided to talk to Nathan. He arrived at the school during recess and found the boy reading a book under a tree, waiting for Emily to return from the bathroom. Nathan, can I talk to you? Of course, Mr. Thompson, you can sit here. Richard sat on the grass next to the wheelchair. I want to tell you something about your mom's job. Nathan closed the book and paid attention. It was you who got her the job, wasn't it? Richard was surprised. How did you know? My mom came home way too happy the day she got the interview, and later she mentioned that her boss looked a lot like you. I put the pieces together. Are you mad at me? Nathan smiled. Mad? Why? For giving my mom a chance to show how capable she is. I thought you might feel bad, like it was charity. Mr. Thompson, charity would be giving us money without expecting anything in return. You gave a work opportunity. My mom deserves that job because she's dedicated and honest. You just had the sense to recognize that. Richard was impressed by the maturity of the response. Thank you for understanding, Nathan. I'm the one who should thank you, for believing in my mom, and for giving her the chance to show her worth. And about the treatment, I know it's expensive, and that without my mum's new salary it wouldn't be possible. I'm very grateful for that. You know what else makes me happy? What? Knowing that we have true friends, people who care about us not because they feel sorry for us, but because they genuinely like us. Richard felt a tightness in his chest. Nathan, you and your mother have become part of our family. You can always count on us. And you can always count on us too. At that moment, Richard understood that true friendship isn't based on who helps whom, but on a genuine exchange of affection and mutual support. Nathan didn't feel diminished by accepting help, because he knew he also had a lot to offer. The following months brought surprising developments. Nathan's treatment was working better than the doctors expected. His muscle strength had improved significantly, and he could stand for increasingly longer periods. "Doctor, is there a possibility of him walking again?" asked Miss Patricia during an appointment. "It's too early to say for certain, but we are very optimistic. Nathan is responding exceptionally well to the treatment. With intensive physical therapy, that possibility does exist." The news filled the whole family with hope. Nathan began physical therapy sessions 3 times a week, always accompanied by Emily and Richard when possible. "Come on, Nathan, one more step," Emily encouraged during the sessions. "You can do it," Richard supported. Nathan pushed himself to the limit, determined to regain mobility in his legs. But even on the most difficult days, when the pain was intense and progress seemed slow, he kept his good humor. "You know what's funny?" he said one day after a particularly challenging session. "Before, I thought my life would be limited because of the wheelchair. But now I see that I learned important things that I might not have learned if things were different." "What things?" asked Emily. "I learned to value people for who they are on the inside. I learned that real strength isn't in the muscles but in the heart, and I learned that helping others is the most important thing we can do in life." Richard listened to these words with deep admiration. Nathan had transformed his limitations into wisdom and his difficulties into compassion. It was a life lesson that many adults take decades to learn. The Anti-Bullying Club had become an official school program, recognized by the Department of Education as a model to be followed in other institutions. Nathan and Emily were invited to give talks at schools in the region, sharing their experiences and strategies. Bullying happens when someone feels small inside and tries to feel bigger by putting others down, Nathan explained to an audience of 200 children at a public school on the south side. But when we understand that, it's easier not to take it personally. And the most important thing is to never face it alone, Emily added. There's always someone willing to help. Teachers, parents, friends. We just need to have the courage to ask. The talks were an absolute success. The children related to Nathan and Emily because they spoke as equals, sharing real experiences instead of abstract theories. Richard attended these talks with growing pride. His daughter had become an empathetic and courageous person, capable of speaking in public and defending important causes, and all thanks to Nathan's influence. 1 year after the wheelchair accident, something extraordinary happened. Nathan managed to take his first unsupported steps during a physical therapy session. "Doctor, I did it! I walked by myself!" shouted Nathan, with tears of joy in his eyes. Miss Patricia, who was watching the session, broke down in tears. Richard and Emily, who were present, applauded emotionally. "This is just the beginning, Nathan," said the physical therapist. "With constant training, you will be able to walk normally." The news spread quickly through the school. The next day, all the students and teachers threw a surprise party to celebrate Nathan's achievement. He arrived still in a wheelchair, but during the party, he stood up and took a few steps to everyone's emotion. "I want to thank all of you," said Nathan, addressing the classmates gathered in the courtyard, especially my best friend Emily, who never doubted that I would make it, and to Mr. Richard, who has become like a father to me. Richard couldn't hold back his tears. That extraordinary boy had called him father. It was an honor he wasn't sure he deserved, but one he accepted with all his heart. "Nathan, you are the one who taught us the true meaning of courage and determination," replied Richard. "We are the ones who are grateful to have you in our lives." Nathan's recovery progressed quickly. In 6 months he was walking normally. He still did maintenance physical therapy, but his life had completely changed. "You know what's strange?" Nathan commented to Emily one day as they walked through the school courtyard. "I miss the chair sometimes." "Miss it? Why?" "Because it taught me important things. It taught me to see the world from a different angle. It taught me that we can overcome anything if we have determination." You don't need the chair to remember those lessons, Nathan. They are part of who you are now. Nathan smiled. "You're right, Em. And you know what I've decided?" "What?" "I want to be a doctor, a pediatrician, to help other kids who go through what I went through. I want to show them that limitations don't define who we are." Richard, who was listening to the conversation from afar, felt his chest tighten with pride. Nathan had found his calling and life purpose. That night, Richard talked with Jennifer about an idea that was forming in his mind. What if we created a scholarship for Nathan to ensure he can study medicine? "I think it's a wonderful idea, Richard, but do you think he would accept it? If we present it as an investment in the future, as a way for him to be able to help other children, I think so." "And Ms. Patricia?" "Let's talk to both of them together. Explain that it's not charity, but a way to multiply the good that Nathan already does." The conversation happened on a Saturday afternoon at Richard and Jennifer's house. Nathan and Ms. Patricia were invited for a family lunch. "Nathan, have you thought about which college you want to study medicine at?" asked Richard during dessert. "I think about it all the time, Mr. Richard. I want to study at a good university, one with a strong pediatrics program, but I know it will be financially difficult." "What if I told you there's a solution for that?" Nathan and Miss Patricia paid close attention. "I want to create a full scholarship for you. College, materials, housing if necessary. Everything paid for until you graduate." Nathan was speechless. "Mr. Richard, that's very generous, but I can't accept." "Why not?" "Because it's a lot of money. How would I ever repay it?" Richard smiled. "Nathan, you have already repaid far more than you imagine. You changed my daughter's life. You taught me lessons about prejudice and human worth. You turned the school into a better place for all children. Your repayment would be to become a doctor and help other children." "Besides," Jennifer added, "this wouldn't be a donation, it would be an investment. We hope that when you graduate, you will create programs to help underprivileged children. It would be a way to multiply the positive impact." Miss Patricia was crying. "Nathan, accept it. It's the opportunity we've always dreamed of for you." Nathan thought for long minutes. "If I accept, I promise I'll dedicate myself completely to my studies. And I promise that when I graduate, I'll create a program to help kids like I was." "Then it's decided," said Richard, extending his hand for a handshake. "Welcome to your future, Dr. Nathan." The following years passed quickly. Nathan became one of the top students in high school, always helping classmates who were struggling. Emily grew up beside him, developing into an empathetic and determined young woman. The anti-bullying club expanded to other schools in the city. Nathan and Emily, now teenagers, continued visiting schools and giving talks. They had already impacted the lives of thousands of children. Richard watched everything with deep satisfaction. His company had changed too. Inspired by Nathan, he created an inclusion program that employed people with disabilities. He discovered they were the most dedicated and loyal employees he had ever had. "You know, Jennifer," Richard said one evening, watching Nathan and Emily study together at the kitchen table, "I thought I was doing them a favor, but really, they're the ones who completely changed our lives." "The best friendships are like that," Jennifer replied. "Everybody wins, everybody grows." When it was time for college entrance exams, Nathan was accepted into medical school at New York University with one of the highest scores in the country. The celebration party brought together dozens of people whose lives he had touched. "I want to thank everyone who is here," Nathan said during his speech, "especially the Thompson family, who believed in me when I didn't always believe in myself, and to all the kids who were part of the anti-bullying club. You taught me that helping others is the best way to help yourself." Richard moved, stood up to speak. "Nathan, 5 years ago I thought I was protecting my daughter when I took her out of that school. In reality, I was depriving her of the best friend she could ever have. You taught me that strength isn't measured by physical ability, but by the capacity to love and help others. Thank you for changing our lives." Medical school was just the beginning of Nathan's journey. He excelled in all his subjects, especially pediatrics. During his internships, his natural ability to connect with children caught the attention of his professors. "I've never seen a student with such natural empathy for young patients," commented the pediatrics professor. "Nathan has a special gift." During his final year of medical school, Nathan developed his thesis on the psychological impact of physical disabilities in children and how emotional support programs can speed up recovery. His work was considered innovative and won national awards. Richard and Jennifer followed every step of Nathan's journey, as proud as if he were their biological son. Miss Patricia had been promoted to administrative director of Richard's company, becoming one of the most respected executives in the organization. Emily, inspired by her friend, decided to study psychology to work with children who are victims of bullying. She and Nathan dreamed of opening a specialized clinic that combined medical and psychological treatment. "We'll be the first Dr. Nathan and Dr. Emily," she used to joke during high school. "Deal," Nathan would reply. "We'll be the best medical team in the country." Nathan's graduation was an emotional event. Richard, Jennifer, Emily, and Miss Patricia were in the front row applauding as he walked onto the stage to receive his diploma. "Dr. Nathan Miller," announced the dean, "graduated with academic honors and special recognition for excellence in pediatrics." Nathan waved to his family, tears of joy in his eyes. When he stepped off the stage, he went straight to hug Richard. "Dad," said Nathan, using that word to address Richard for the first time, "thank you for believing in me." Richard couldn't speak. He just hugged the young man he considered a son. After graduation, Nathan was accepted for a pediatric residency at the University Medical Center, one of the most prestigious in the country. His first specialization would be in degenerative muscle diseases, exactly the condition he had faced in childhood. "I want to help other children go through this with more hope," Nathan explained during his residency interview. "I want them to see that it's possible to overcome any limitation." During the residency, Nathan became famous among his young patients. He had a unique way of explaining complicated treatments so that children could understand and feel safe. "Dr. Nathan, were you ever sick like me?" asked a 7-year-old girl during a checkup. "Yes, I was, Abigail. When I was your age, I also had problems with my legs. I couldn't walk." "And now you can?" "Can you see?" Nathan stood up and took a few steps around the room. "With treatment, patients, and people who help us, we can overcome a lot of things." The girl smiled for the first time since she had been admitted. "So, I'm going to get better too?" "You absolutely will. And do you know why? Because you are brave and determined, just like I was." Cases like this repeated themselves daily. Nathan didn't just treat illnesses, he also cured fears and inspired hope. His superiors quickly realized they had an exceptional doctor in training. Meanwhile, Emily was completing her undergraduate degree in psychology with a specialization in child therapy. She interned at hospitals and schools, always focused on helping children who suffered from bullying or had low self-esteem. "Em, you have a natural talent for this," commented her internship supervisor. "The children trust you immediately." "I learned from the best," Emily would reply, always referring to Nathan. Richard watched the development of the two young people with deep satisfaction. His company had become a benchmark for social inclusion, employing more than 200 people with some type of disability. The program had been copied by dozens of other companies. "You know what makes me proudest?" Richard said to Jennifer one evening. It's not the company's success or the recognition we've received. It's seeing that Nathan and Emily have become people who make a difference in the lives of others. And to think it all started because you arrived early at school that day, replied Jennifer, smiling. Actually, it started because I almost made the biggest mistake of my life. If it weren't for Emily's stubbornness in maintaining her friendship with Nathan, I would have missed the chance to know one of the most extraordinary people I've ever met. Nathan's residency was completed with honors. He was invited to join the permanent staff of the University Medical Center, an honor reserved only for the most exceptional residents. Emily completed her specialization in child therapy and was hired by the same institution. Their dream of working together had finally come true. Dr. Emily and Dr. Nathan, she said on their first day working as a team, we finally made it. We're going to be the best therapeutic duo in the hospital, Nathan replied, smiling. They created an innovative program that combined traditional medical treatment with psychological therapy focused on self-esteem and overcoming challenges. The program quickly gained national recognition. What do you do differently? A journalist asked during an interview for a medical magazine. We treat the child as a whole, Nathan explained, not just the illness or physical limitation, but also the fears, dreams, and potential of each patient. And we always remind the children that they are so much more than their limitations, Emily added, that they can be the heroes of their own stories. The duo's work attracted international attention. They were invited to medical conferences in other countries, always carrying the message that humanized treatment makes all the difference. Richard created a foundation to fund research into degenerative diseases in children. The Nathan Miller Foundation had already funded dozens of studies and helped hundreds of families afford expensive treatments. Richard, are you sure about the name of the foundation? Asked Jennifer when he announced the decision. I'm absolutely sure. Nathan deserves this tribute. He turned a personal limitation into a life mission to help others. When Nathan learned about the foundation, he was deeply moved. Mr. Richard. Dad, this is more than I ever dreamed of. An entire foundation dedicated to helping children like I was. Nathan, you inspired all of this. It's only fair that it bears your name. Ms. Patricia, now a successful executive, had also gotten involved in the foundation. She coordinated the social assistance programs, helping underprivileged families access treatments. Sometimes I think about how our lives have changed, commented Patricia during a foundation meeting. From a cleaning lady working 3 jobs to an executive coordinating social programs. It feels like a dream. It's not a dream, Miss Patricia, said Richard. It's the result of hard work and determination, yours and Nathan's. 5 years after Nathan's graduation, something happened that none of them expected. Emily and Nathan, after years of deep friendship, realized their feelings had evolved into love. Em, I need to tell you something, said Nathan one afternoon, after an especially intense day at the hospital. Go ahead, Nathan. I've fallen in love with you. I know we've been friends for so long and I don't want to ruin that, but I can't hide it anymore. Emily smiled with tears in her eyes. Nathan, I was waiting for you to have the courage to say that. I've fallen in love with you too. Their romance was natural and deep, built on years of friendship, mutual respect and shared values. Richard and Jennifer received the news with immense joy. It was obvious it was going to happen, said Jennifer. They've always been soulmates. Nathan is going to be a wonderful son-in-law, agreed Richard. In fact, he's been like a son to me for years. The wedding took place 2 years later, in a simple but moving ceremony. Richard had the honor of walking Emily down the aisle, where Nathan waited in a tuxedo, more handsome than ever. Take good care of our girl, whispered Richard into Nathan's ear during the ceremony. I always have, Dad, and I always will, replied Nathan, naturally using the word Dad to refer to Richard. The wedding was followed by a honeymoon, where they visited children's hospitals in different countries, always exchanging experiences and learning new techniques for humanized treatment. 3 years after the wedding, Emily and Nathan announced they were expecting their first child. The news filled the whole family with joy. It will be a blessed child, said Ms. Patricia, beaming at the prospect of being a grandmother. It will have the best parents in the world, agreed Jennifer. Richard was ecstatic at the idea of being a grandfather. He, who had almost lost the chance to know Nathan because of prejudice, would now have a grandson who carried the genes of two extraordinary people. The son of Nathan and Emily was born on a sunny spring morning, a healthy boy who was named Richard Nathan, honoring the two most important men in his parents' lives. "Hi, Grandpa Richard," said Nathan, placing the baby in his father-in-law's arms. "Meet your grandson, Richard Nathan." Richard held the baby carefully, feeling an overwhelming emotion. That child represented the fruit of a friendship that almost didn't happen, of a love that grew on solid foundations of respect and mutual admiration. "Thank you, Nathan," said Richard, his voice choked with emotion. "Thank you for coming into our lives and changing everything for the better. I'm the one who should thank you, Dad, for giving me a family, an opportunity, and the chance to help other people." 10 years had passed since that day at school, when Richard saw Nathan protecting Emily. The boy in the wheelchair had become a renowned doctor, a specialist in pediatrics and degenerative diseases. Emily was a respected psychologist, coordinating children's mental health programs. Together, they had revolutionized the treatment of children with physical limitations, always focusing not just on healing the body, but also on healing the soul. Their work had impacted thousands of lives. The Nathan Miller Foundation had become one of the largest organizations supporting children with disabilities in the country. Richard continued to fund research and treatments, but now with the help of Nathan and Emily in coordinating the projects. Ms. Patricia had become the general director of Richard's company, one of the most respected executives in the industry. She never forgot where she came from and always supported employees who were going through difficulties. "You know what amazes me the most about this whole story?" commented Jennifer one afternoon, watching Nathan play with their son in the garden while Emily prepared a snack. "What?" asked Richard. "How a decision you almost made out of prejudice could have prevented all of this from happening. Their marriage, our grandson, all the good they do in the world." Richard reflected on his wife's words. "It's true. If I had kept Emily away from Nathan, I would have deprived all of us of one of the richest experiences of our lives. And how many people would have lost the chance to be helped by them? That's why I always tell my employees now, never judge someone by their appearance or apparent limitations. Sometimes, the person who seems the weakest is actually the strongest of all." That afternoon, as he watched his family gathered in the garden, Nathan teaching their son to take his first steps, Emily reading a book to him, Ms. Patricia helping Jennifer in the kitchen, Richard realized how much his life had been transformed. He had learned that true wealth isn't measured in a bank account, but in genuine relationships. He had discovered that strength isn't the absence of limitations, but the ability to overcome them. And most importantly, he had understood that sometimes the people we need most in our lives arrive in ways we never expect. "Dad," Emily called from the garden, "come play with your grandson." Richard got up from the sofa and walked toward the family that had formed so unexpectedly. He picked up his grandson and looked at Nathan, who was smiling with that expression of determination and kindness he had never lost. "Nathan, there's one thing I've always wanted to ask you," said Richard. "You can ask, Dad. On that first day at school, when I saw you protecting Emily, weren't you afraid of the bigger girls?" Nathan smiled, the same brave smile he had when he was 12 years old. "I was very afraid, Dad. But you know what my mother always told me." "What?" "That courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right even when we are afraid, and protecting the people we love is always the right thing to do." Richard nodded, holding his grandson tighter. That lesson from a 12-year-old boy had changed his life forever. It had transformed his prejudices into understanding, his rigidity into flexibility, and his limited definition of success into a much broader vision of what truly matters in life. "Thank you, Nathan," Richard said once more. "Thank you for teaching us the true meaning of courage, love, and family." "Thank you for giving us the chance to show who we really are," Nathan replied. And so, as the sun set on that peaceful afternoon, the family that had begun with a seemingly chance encounter continued to grow, forging new bonds of love and perpetuating values of inclusion, compassion, and resilience that would touch many other lives in the years to come. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this story of resilience and true friendship. Do you believe that small acts of courage can transform entire lives? Leave your opinion in the comments and share your own experiences about how special friendships have changed your life perspective. Don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories like this one.